This story is titled, My Wife Wanted a LAT Marriage, but Regretted It When Her Sister Got Attracted to Me. Hi, folks, obligatory throwaway account because my wife knows my main, and some friends follow me there. Also, sorry for any formatting issues. Typing this on my phone while sitting in my car because I need to get this off my chest. So, guys, I, 36 male, need to share this absolutely insane situation that's been going down in my life recently. Been married to my wife, Anne, 33 female, for almost 8 years now, together for 10. Got two amazing daughters, 7 and 5, and honestly, I thought everything was pretty solid. Like, yeah, we weren't doing the honeymoon phase stuff anymore, but who does after 8 years and 2 kids, right? We had our normal marriage stuff. Sometimes we'd argue about dumb things like me leaving my work boots in the living room or her spending too much on Amazon, but nothing major. I work in construction management. Started as a regular worker, worked my way up, make decent money, and Anne has this corporate job she seems to like. We bought a house 3 years ago. Kids are doing great in school. We even got a dog last year. Pretty much living that average American dream, you know? Thinking back, though, I should have picked up on a few things. Anne had been different lately. Lighter, happier. More, I don't know, invested in work all of a sudden. She used to just vent about her job like anyone else. Complain about pointless meetings, annoying coworkers, the usual. But lately, she talked about work like it was exciting. And then there was Jim, her boss. At first, he was just a name that popped up every now and then in her stories. Jim had the funniest take in the meeting today. Or Jim's idea totally saved the project. Normal stuff. But then it started shifting. She began mentioning him in these small, offhanded ways that didn't seem like much at the time, but now stick out like neon signs. Like the time we were talking about management styles, and she said, "You should hear Jim's take on leadership. It's actually really inspiring." Or when I joked about corporate buzzwords, and she immediately went, "Jim says those words actually do matter when building team cohesion." Yeah, Anne, that definitely sounded like her own opinion. I remember casually saying, "Damn, sounds like Jim's your work husband. Just messing around." She froze for half a second, then forced a laugh and went, "Oh, stop. He's just a great mentor." Okay, weird, but I brushed it off. I was on the couch, halfway through a YouTube video about fixing the garage door, when Anne walked in. She had that look, like she'd been sitting on something for a while and finally worked up the nerve to say it. "Everything okay? Kids good? Your parents?" I asked, already half distracted, thinking it was just some random update. Yeah, everyone's fine," she said, shifting her weight like she couldn't get comfortable standing there. I just, I need to talk to you about something." That got my attention. I paused the video and looked at her. "Okay, what's up?" She exhaled. "I think we should, maybe try LAT, living apart together." Living? What? You know, still married, but separate places. Sharing custody. It's a thing. People do it. I just stared at her, waiting for her to laugh or say she was kidding. She didn't. I had to pause my video and everything because I thought maybe I was having some weird hallucination from the cleaning chemicals I was using earlier. For context, everything seemed fine that morning. We had breakfast together, I helped get the kids ready for school, normal goodbye kiss, the whole routine. No fights, no tension, nothing. So this came completely out of left field. I asked her for more explanation about the LAT thing, and where did she know about it? Turns out she's been hanging out a lot with this friend Pat from her yoga class. Pat's like this self-proclaimed modern relationships expert who's been divorced 4 times. Yeah, you read that right. And somehow she thinks this makes her qualified to give marriage advice? Like, wouldn't that make her an expert in how to fail at marriage? I tried to stay calm, though, proud of myself for that TBH. Took a deep breath, put my phone down, and tried to have an actual adult conversation about this. Asked her what brought this on, if I'd done something wrong, if there were problems I didn't know about. You know, trying to be that mature husband who communicates and stuff. But guys, her response was wild. She just sat there like she was talking about changing our internet provider or something. Said she needed space and time for personal growth. Started throwing around all these buzzwords that honestly sounded straight out of some self-help book Pat probably gave her. Kept talking about how LAT relationships are the future of marriage and how all these European couples are doing it. Because apparently what works in Sweden should definitely work in suburban Ohio. The part that really got me? She had the nerve to say we could always go back to living together if it doesn't work out. Like this was just some trial run of a new Netflix show we could cancel if we didn't like it. Not, you know, our actual marriage and family. The whole time she's talking, I'm just sitting there thinking about our kids. Like, how do you explain to a 7-year-old that mommy and daddy are still married but don't want to live together anymore? Make it make sense. That night, I couldn't sleep. My brain wouldn't shut up. Anne had never been the type to entertain ideas like this. Even when the whole open marriage thing came up in conversations, usually as a joke, she always shut it down. Said it was too much, not for her. She used to roll her eyes at couples who tried those modern arrangements. So, what changed? Was I not giving her what she wanted? Had I missed something? I kept replaying our last few months together, trying to find the moment things shifted. But I'm sure she was happy. She'd been lighter, more, I don't know, energized lately. And if I had to pinpoint when that started, it was around the time she got close to her new friend, Pete. Since then, it was like I was living with a different version of Anne. So after Anne dropped the whole LAT bomb on me, I did what any reasonable person would do, spent half the night Googling everything I could about LAT relationships while stress eating the kids' leftover Halloween candy. And let me tell you, what I found was interesting. Turns out this LAT thing isn't completely crazy. Some people actually make it work. But here's the thing. It's usually older couples who already have grown kids, or people who work in different cities. Not couples with two young kids in elementary school who live in the same suburb. Red flag number 427, am I right? But I decided to play along. You know that saying about giving someone enough rope? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So the next morning, I sat down with Anne and was like, okay, let's talk about how this would actually work. Had my laptop out, Google Docs open, ready to take notes like this was some business meeting. The look on her face when I started talking about formal custody arrangements? Priceless. Pretty sure she thought this would be more like a casual, you do your thing, I do mine situation. Me. So we'll need to figure out a proper custody schedule. I'm thinking week on, week off, or maybe 2, 2, 3. And we'll need to set up clear rules about holidays and birthdays. Her, surprised Pikachu face. Me. Oh, and we should probably get lawyers involved to make everything official. You know, so there's no confusion later. Her. Lawyers? I was thinking we could just figure it out as we go. That's when I dropped the bomb that my cousin Kate is a family lawyer. You guys should have seen Anne's face when I mentioned that Kate had actually offered to represent me for free if I ever needed it. Random conversation at last year's Christmas party. Thanks, drunk Kate. Anne immediately started talking about this lawyer she knows through Pat. Apparently, he handled all of Pat's divorces. Yes, all 4 of them. Big surprise there, right? Here's where it gets good, though. I started asking very specific questions about her plan. Who's paying for the second apartment? How are we splitting the bills? What about the kids' school transportation? Who gets the dog on which days? How do we handle medical emergencies? What about parent-teacher conferences? Who's responsible for extracurriculars? With each question, she looked more and more uncomfortable. Pretty sure this isn't how Pat told her it would go. The best part? I pulled out this spreadsheet I made at 3 a.m., showing exactly how much everything would cost when we're maintaining 2 households instead of 1. Rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, the whole 9 yards. Even included a column for dating expenses. Because hey, if we're living apart, might as well be realistic about everything, right? I could literally see the moment it hit her, that this wasn't going to be some fun little independent woman adventure, like in those movies Pat probably made her watch. This was going to be real life, with real responsibilities and real consequences. Then I asked the million-dollar question. So, which neighborhood are you thinking of moving to? The way she hesitated before answering? Yeah, that set off all kinds of alarm bells in my head. She tried to calm herself and said that she's been looking at the Oak Valley apartments. For those not familiar with that area, Oak Valley is this fancy-ish complex on the other side of town. Way more expensive than what we'd budgeted for in my spreadsheet. I ended the conversation there, told her we're going to continue planning later. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but something felt off. Why that specific place? It's like a 30-minute drive from the kids' school, has no playground, and their units are mostly one-bedrooms. Not exactly ideal for someone planning to have 2 kids stay over regularly. So I did what any paranoid husband would do, started digging. Turns out one of my work buddies, Dave, has a sister who works at Oak Valley's leasing office. Shot him a text asking if he could get some intel. Yeah, I know that's kind of sketchy, but desperate times, right? Guess who lives at Oak Valley? Someone from Anne's office. The new regional manager she's mentioned a few, 100 times in the past couple months. Mr. Oh, he's just really passionate about corporate synergy. Himself. But I thought she was jealous of him living in that neighborhood, and wanted to try it too. But here's what threw me off. When I brought up setting up the kids' rooms in her new place, Anne got super weird about it. Started saying stuff like, Maybe we should wait until I'm settled in, and the girls might be confused at first. Then, drop this gem. Maybe they should just stay with you most of the time until everything's figured out. Right. Because nothing says good mother, like voluntarily seeing your kids less, so you can live in a one-bedroom apartment near your totally just a coworker boss. I didn't confront her about Jim right away, though. I wanted to gather more info first, so I reached out to her sister Liz. Now, Liz and I have always gotten along, maybe a little too well if I'm being honest. Ever since her divorce last year, she's been a bit flirty. Nothing over the top, but enough to notice. She even straight up told me once, you know, if my sister didn't have you first, I just laughed it off, never encouraged it. Because, well, marriage. Liz was shocked about the whole LAT thing, but then she started putting pieces together. Apparently, Anne had been asking her all these hypothetical questions lately. How long should you wait to date after separation? Is it weird to date someone from work? And my personal favorite, how do you tell the kids you're seeing someone new? Then she told me Anne had been specifically asking about Jim's schedule, which floor he lived on, whether he had a girlfriend, basically everything except his blood type and social security number. Apparently, she thought she was being subtle. I wanted to throw up. All these years together, and now she comes to me with some trendy new term like it's a damn life hack? Like our marriage is just some experiment she read about in a self-help book? I spent the whole night in the garage, pretending to fix things. In reality, I was beating the hell out of my punching bag, fists throbbing, jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. Every time I thought about her sitting me down like that. So casual, so decided, I saw red. Later, I found out that while I was out there trying to keep myself from losing it, Anne was inside on the phone with Pat for 2 hours, probably getting more expert advice on how to tear down a marriage in record time. I knew everything is done between us, and the trust was already shattered, but I had to play on my own terms. The next morning, I started looking at apartments myself, but I started checking out places near where Liz lives, which is in the complete opposite direction from Oak Valley. I brought it to Anne casually. So, I started looking at apartments, I said, scrolling on my phone. Anne barely looked up from her coffee. Oh, okay. Where? Couple places near Liz's neighborhood, I said, keeping my voice even. That got her attention. Her head snapped up. Wait, what? That's the opposite direction from Oak Valley? Yep. I took a sip of my coffee. Her forehead creased. But that's not fair to the kids. If we live too far apart, it's going to be hard on them. I set my cup down and just stared at her. Oh, now we're thinking about what's fair to the kids. She blinked, like she didn't expect me to push back. The audacity of this woman, I swear. She opened her mouth, shut it, then let out this annoyed sigh. That's not what I meant. You're just being difficult on purpose. I leaned back in my chair, let out a short laugh, and shook my head. Oh no, Anne. I'm enjoying this. A lot. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't respond, just brushed over her and walked away. And then, just when I thought I couldn't be more pissed off, Anne went and proved me wrong. That evening, I overheard her on the phone. Wasn't even trying to eavesdrop. Just walked past the bedroom and heard her talking way too casually about something that made my blood boil. Yeah, I think it'll be good for us, she was saying. Gives me a chance to reset. Focus on myself, you know? And honestly, I think Tom will come around once he sees how much easier things are this way. Less stress, less arguing. He might even end up preferring it. Excuse me? Preferring it? Then she laughed. Actually laughed. Like this whole thing was just some quirky little lifestyle shift and not a complete destruction of our family dynamic. I stood there for a second, fists clenched, just absorbing the fact that she really thought I was just going to roll over and accept this. Like I was some clueless, passive idiot she could nudge into a situation that only benefited her. Then I decided it was time to drop my own little bob. And boy, did it work better than I expected. We were sitting in the kitchen going over more living apart together details. Anne was being all smug about how mature we were about everything. That's when I casually mentioned the Florida trip. For context, Anne has been obsessed with going to Florida since forever. Like, unhealthy levels of obsession. She follows all these Florida vacation accounts on Instagram, has a whole Pinterest board dedicated to Florida beaches, the works. But we never went because something always came up. Kids were too young, couldn't get time off work, money was tight, you know how it goes. So I'm sitting there, drinking my coffee, and just casually go, oh, by the way, I need your input on something. Should I try to get a refund for the Florida tickets or just change the names? You guys, the way her head snapped up, pretty sure she gave herself whiplash. What Florida tickets? She asks, trying and failing to sound casual. That's when I told her about the surprise vacation I'd booked for our upcoming anniversary. 7 days, beachfront hotel, all the works. Even arranged for her parents to watch the kids. They don't know about the LAT situation yet. That's a whole other nightmare waiting to happen. The look on her face was priceless. First excitement, then confusion, then this weird mix of hope and panic. Like a kid who just found out they're going to Disney World, but also remembered they're grounded. You, you planned a Florida trip? For us? She practically whispered. Well, I planned it for us when we were still in us, I said. But since you want to do this LAT thing, I figured you might want to take someone else instead. The tickets are paid for, non-refundable. It would be a shame to waste them. She started backpedaling so fast I thought she might actually start moonwalking. Maybe we should wait on the LAT thing, she says. We could use this trip to reconnect. That's when I dropped the second bomb. Actually, I already called the travel agent and had your ticket changed to be transferable. You can take whoever you want. Maybe Jim would enjoy a beach vacation? The color drained from her face, like went ghost white. Started stammering about how Jim was just a coworker and asking why would I even suggest that. I just shrugged and said, well, since you're planning to move into his apartment building, I figured you guys must be close. Then got up to get more coffee like I hadn't just nuked our entire conversation. She followed me around the kitchen trying to explain that I had it all wrong, that Oak Valley just happened to be a nice complex, that Jim living there was just a coincidence. Then she hit me with this. How do you even know Jim lives there? Have you been checking up on me? So I just looked at her and said, interesting that you're more concerned about how I know where Jim lives than about the fact that you were planning to move in near him without telling me. She didn't say anything, but I could see her eyes watering, and she was about to break down before she stormed off. I just stood there, feeling nothing but disgust. After the whole Florida tickets thing, I thought maybe Anne would come clean about everything. Silly me, right? Instead, she went into full damage control mode. But not the kind where you actually fix things. More like the kind where you try to gaslight everyone into thinking you're the victim. First, she went running to Pat, because of course she did. They had this 3-hour phone call, where I could hear Anne crying through the walls about how I was emotionally manipulating her by checks notes, exposing her plan to abandon her kids to live near her boss. The mental gymnastics these two do should qualify them for the Olympics, I swear. But here's where it gets interesting. Remember my work buddy Dave whose sister works at Oak Valley? Well, turns out Jim's been doing some shady stuff too. According to office gossip, bless those receptionists and their love for drama, Jim's been bragging to his work buddies about this hot mom from accounting who's totally into him. Guess who works in accounting? The best part though? Jim has a girlfriend. A serious girlfriend. Like, they're picking out rings, serious. And she has no idea about any of this. Found that out from Dave's sister who processed their rental renewal last month. They're living together at Oak Valley. So now I'm sitting on this bomb of information, trying to decide what to do with it. Part of me wants to blow everything up. Tell Jim's girlfriend, tell HR, tell everyone. But the smarter part of me sounds suspiciously like Cousin Kate, the lawyer, says to keep collecting evidence and stay calm. Speaking of my lawyer, Kate, she came through like a champ, pulled some legal strings and got a copy of Anne's rental application for Oak Valley. She listed herself as single on the application. Not separated, not married, single. And put down Jim as her emergency contact instead of, her husband or her kid's father. Meanwhile, Anne's still trying to play both sides. One minute she's all, let's work on our marriage. And the next she's texting Jim. Yeah, I saw the notifications pop up on her iPad. She really should change her password from our anniversary date. It's like watching someone try to juggle with no hand-eye coordination. Then there's the Liz situation. After the Florida tickets drama, she's been texting me more often, checking how I'm holding up. Nothing inappropriate, just being supportive. But Anne saw one of her texts pop up on my phone while I was making dinner. Hope you're hanging in there. Let me know if you need to talk. And flipped. Out. The conversation went something like this. Anne, why is my sister texting you? Me. Because unlike some people, she actually cares about her family. Anne, she's always had a thing for you. I bet you two are loving this. Me. Interesting how you're more worried about your sister texting me than about Jim's girlfriend finding out about your apartment plans. Anne, Jim has nothing to do with this. And what girlfriend? She completely lost it. Like full-on breakdown mode. She started pacing around the kitchen, running her hands through her hair, muttering about how this wasn't supposed to happen this way. Then she just crumpled, literally slid down against the kitchen cabinet onto the floor and started sobbing. You're going to leave me for Liz, aren't you? She choked out between sobs. That's why you're moving near her. You two probably planned this whole thing. I just stood there for a minute. remembering how everything was fine and how she ruined everything. You know what's funny? I finally said, leaning against the counter. You're sitting there crying about me potentially leaving you for your sister, which isn't happening, by the way, while you were literally planning to move into your married boss's apartment complex. The mental gymnastics here are Olympic level. She looked up at me, mascara running down her face. I wasn't, it wasn't like that. I just, I felt stuck, like life was passing me by. And Jim, he made me feel, let me stop you right there. I cut her off. Because if the next words out of your mouth are about how your taken boss made you feel special while I was busy providing for our family and raising our kids, I might actually lose it. That set off a fresh round of sobbing. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. Or the girls. Oh God, the girls. What have I done? That's the thing, Anne. You did mean to hurt us. Maybe not consciously, but every step you took, the LAT suggestion, the apartment near Jim, putting him as your emergency contact, listing yourself as single, those were all choices. Choices you made knowing they would hurt your family. She just sat there crying. And honestly, it didn't make me feel better like I thought it would. Just made me sad. Sad for our kids, sad for what we had, sad that she'd thrown it all away for some fantasy that was never going to work. Then she said something that actually made me laugh out loud. But Pat said this was normal. She said all marriages go through this and that LAT would save our relationship. Pat? You mean the woman who's been divorced 4 times? That Pat? Yeah, great source of marriage advice there. I'm so stupid, she whispered, more to herself than to me. No, you're not stupid, I sighed. You're selfish. There's a difference. Then she looked up at me with these huge, teary eyes. Can we fix this? Please? I'll do anything. I'll quit my job, cut off Pat, go to counseling, whatever you want. Just please don't leave me for Liz. And that's when I realized she still didn't get it. Still thought this was about me and Liz, or her and Jim, or some other external factor. Couldn't see that she'd broken something fundamental in our marriage the moment she decided to plan a whole secret life without me or our kids in it. I'm going to stay at Liz's tonight, I said, grabbing my keys. Not because anything's happening there, but because I need space to think how we are going to end this. And honestly, looking at you right now just hurts too much. Left her sitting there on the kitchen floor. Could hear her crying as I walked out, but didn't look back. Got in my truck and just drove. I stayed at Liz's for 3 days. Spare room before anyone asks. Needed time to clear my head and figure out next steps. Plus, cousin Kate, the lawyer, wanted to get all our ducks in a row before the big family meeting. We decided it was time for everyone to know everything. Set it up at Anne's parents' house. Figured neutral territory would be best. Plus, they deserved to know why their grandkids' lives were about to change. Anne tried to get out of it. Said she was too emotional to handle it. Told her she could either come voluntarily, or I'd have Kate start the divorce proceedings without her input. She showed up. Walking in was surreal. Her mom had made coffee and put out those cookies she always makes for family meetings. Like this was just another Sunday visit, not the day their daughter's marriage imploded. Kate brought copies of everything. The Oak Valley application where Anne listed herself as single, screenshots of text conversations between her and Jim, yeah, got those from her iPad, bank statements showing she'd been moving money to a separate account, everything. Laid it all out on their dining room table like some twisted timeline of betrayal. Anne's mom started crying when she saw the rental application. Her dad just sat there, getting quieter and quieter as Kate went through everything. The only sound was Anne's occasional sniffling and her mom's muffled sobs. Then we got to the custody plan. That's when Anne finally spoke up. I want joint custody, she said quietly. Her dad actually laughed, like a harsh, bitter laugh I'd never heard from him before. Joint custody, he said, after you tried to move into a 1-bedroom apartment and listed your boss as your emergency contact instead of your children's father. That's rich, honey. Anne started with the waterworks again. I wasn't thinking clearly, Pat said. If you mention Pat one more time, her mom actually shouted. Never heard her raise her voice before. Ever. Kate stepped in then, all professional. Given the documented evidence of attempted abandonment and the clear prioritization of a potential affair over childcare, we'll be pushing for primary custody with Tom, me, with supervised visitation for Anne until she completes counseling and demonstrates stability. The way Anne's face crumpled when Kate said, supervised visitation, man, that hit hard. Like reality finally caught up with her fantasy. Her dad turned to me. The girls? Do they know? Not yet, I said. I wanted to handle this part first. They're with my parents today. Then we had to figure out the logistics. Kate had drafted a separation agreement that was more than fair. I'd keep the house. Mortgage is in my name anyway. Anne would move in with her parents temporarily. Standard custody arrangement once she completes counseling. Even put in a clause about no overnight guests of the opposite sex during visitation. Yeah, that was aimed at Jim. Anne tried to argue about some points, but her own parents shut her down. Her dad actually said, "You lost the right to negotiate when you tried to abandon your children for a man who's about to be engaged to someone else. Watching your in-laws side with you over their own daughter? Not as satisfying as you'd think. Just sad." The meeting ended with Anne signing everything through tears. Her mom hugged me goodbye and whispered, "I'm so sorry." Her dad just looked defeated. Got home that night to an empty house. The girls were still at my parents', and everything felt too quiet. Found a note from Anne on the counter. Pages and pages of apologies, begging me to reconsider, saying she'd do anything to fix this. At that point, I didn't feel anything. I just felt empty. It's been 2 months now. The divorce is final. Anne moved back in with her parents after the gym situation blew up spectacularly. More on that in a minute. The girls are adjusting better than expected. Turns out kids are pretty smart about figuring out who actually puts them first. So here's what happened with Jim. Remember his girlfriend? Yeah, she was not happy when she found out about Anne. Actually showed up at Anne's work with printouts of all their texts. Guess I wasn't the only one checking iPads. The whole office got to watch Anne try to explain why she was planning to move into their apartment complex while listing Jim as her emergency contact. HR got involved. Both Anne and Jim got fired. Karma's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Pat also got what was coming to her. Turns out I wasn't the only husband who was tired of her modern relationship advice. 3 other couples from Anne's yoga class came forward about how she'd encouraged their wives to try LAT, or open marriages. Her ex-husbands had a field day with that one. She's apparently moved to Florida. Ironic, right? To find herself, or whatever. Speaking of Florida, something interesting happened with those tickets. Remember how Anne was so worried about me and Liz? Well, turns out she wasn't entirely wrong to be worried, just wrong about the timing. After everything settled down with the divorce, Liz and I started hanging out more. At first, it was just family stuff with the girls. They've always loved their aunt, and having her around made the transition easier. Then it was coffee to discuss Anne's latest drama. Then dinner to vent about dating horror stories. You know how these things go. One night, after putting the girls to bed, Liz and I were sitting on my back porch talking about those Florida tickets. She joked about how Anne always thought something was going on between us back then. We laughed about it, and then, well, sometimes the universe has a sick sense of humor. Yeah, we're dating now. No, we didn't plan it. Yes, we know it's messy. But after watching Anne try to blow up our family for some married guy who didn't even want her, it was kind of refreshing to realize I had feelings for someone who already loved my kids and understood what family means. When Anne found out, holy shit, DEFCON 1 level meltdown. Called her parents screaming about how we'd betrayed her. They just hung up. Guess they remembered how she was ready to abandon her kids for Jim. She even tried to use it against me in court to get the custody arrangement changed. Kate shut that down real quick. Pointed out that dating your ex's sister isn't quite the same as trying to move in with your married boss while listing yourself as single. The custody arrangement is working out great. I've got primary custody. Anne gets supervised visits. Thanks to all that documented evidence of her trying to abandon the kids for her married boss. She's in therapy now. Actual therapy, not Pat's wine and wine sessions. And honestly, not my problem anymore. The girls are actually thriving. Turns out having their aunt become their almost stepmom isn't as weird for them as we worried it would be. They just think it's cool that Aunt Liz is around more. Plus, they've got someone in their life who actually shows up for them, helps with homework, comes to their events, and hasn't once suggested moving away for personal growth. Oh, and that college fund Anne tried to access for her Oak Valley deposit? Her parents transferred it to an account for the girl's actual college education. They still barely speak to her, but they come over for Sunday dinners with me, Liz, and the kids every week. Took them a minute to adjust to the new dynamic, but I think they're just happy their grandkids have stability. Life's funny sometimes. A year ago, I thought my world was ending when Anne suggested this LAT nonsense. Now, I've got my kids, a great job, business is booming, and somehow ended up with someone who's been there all along, watching me be a good dad and husband while her sister took it all for granted. Anne still tries to manipulate her way back in occasionally. Last week, she left a tearful voicemail about how she's changed and realizes what she lost. I just forwarded it to Kate for the custody file and took Liz and the girls out for ice cream. The irony of her being so worried about me and Liz back then only to end up making it happen herself? Chef's kiss. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, you know? Edit. Thanks for all the awards. But seriously, save your money. Liz and I are using those Florida tickets next month. Edit 2. For those asking. Yes, Jim's girlfriend got engaged. To his best friend. No, we didn't send a gift. Edit 3. Update on Pat. She's apparently writing a book about unconventional relationships. Guess she'll have to add a chapter about how pushing LAT ended up getting your sister your man. TLDR. Divorced the wife, got primary custody, dodged the LAT bullet, and ended up with her sister who actually values family. Life's good.